Hello, Hazmat Users here, and yeah, I'm actually following up a video, and very quickly as of late, but I figured I can easily do it. So as you know, in April this year, Blue Sky Studios closed down. Now, obviously with the pandemic and how much of a financial loss they made over 2020, Disney was bound to make decisions when it came to their studios. And let's be fair, ever since they bought Fox, it was probably likely that the Blue Sky was going to get screwed at some point. And so Disney has cut corners with them. And well, yeah, I'm disappointed, but it's really sad to see a studio like Blue Sky that's been around for so many years. And when you look at other animation studios like Amblimation and Image Movers Digital and Fox Animation Studios, or actually any one of Don Bluth's film studios, they didn't have that much success, or a very little lifespan. But Blue Sky had a lot of success and a very long lifespan. I mean, they were around in the 1980s before transitioning to doing CGI animated movies in the early 2000s. But yeah, I am disappointed, though. I will admit, I'm not the biggest fan of their films. I mean, I've liked a few. I mean, the Peanuts movie in particular is perhaps one of my favorite animated movies of all time. But yeah, a lot of their other stuff I'm not a big fan of. Although I will admit I haven't seen Ferdinand, and I've only seen maybe one or two parts of Spies in Disguise, so I can't give you a full description. Oh yeah, and I haven't seen Collision Course. Do I even need to explain why? But we are here to review an Ice Age film, and that is Ice Age 2, The Meltdown. Now I'm covering this one in particular because, well, I have a bit of experience. I have a long history of this. I actually saw this in theaters when it came out. In fact, I actually remember seeing a teaser trailer for this when I first saw Chicken Little in theaters, which I will have to admit is probably the best thing I saw, looking back on it, when I went to see Chicken Little in theaters, because it's Chicken Little, Disney's worst film, animated film that is, and from their mainline company. I mean, yeah, look, I can go on of why I think is the worst anime movie they've ever worked on, but well, that'll be another time. But so yeah, I remember seeing this at its height, and as a kid who remembers a lot of watching the original Ice Age, and even then still thinks it's a really solid film, really good first film, the original Ice Age, I got myself really excited. Now, a lot of people debate about where to put this, because there are people who think it's just okay, and then people who think it's very flawed. But some would agree this is perhaps the only other good Ice Age film, or the only good Ice Age sequel. And I'm actually on that boat. I think it's actually very underrated. Honestly, it's a really solid film and still holds up. So what's the premise? So Sid, Manny, and Diego return, and at the moment settling back into the main herd of animals, will of course remain their own individual herd themselves. However, as global warming is continuing, the ice is melting, and eventually they discover, through Sid's dumbness and Diego's fear, and Diego's accident, or fear I should say, that the ice is slowly melting, and all the ice up top is going to break apart, and a huge flood's going to happen. So they and every other animal in this valley must travel to the end of the valley, where there's a way to save themselves. However, while keeping themselves alive is on his mind, Manny's got another problem. As we know in the first film, Manny is well, actually I'll get to that part later, but Manny is struggling to cope that he might be the last mammoth because he hasn't seen any mammoths in forever, and at this point during we didn't see any other mammoths in the first film other than the cave painting sequence. So we're thinking maybe Manny is the last one. So as he begins to accept his fate, he ends up finding another mammoth, a female one known as Ellie, played by Queen Latifah, and she thinks she is a possum because she was raised by opossums ever since she was a baby, with her two adopted brothers Crash and Eddie. Now, so Manny tries to connect with Ellie, while all of them try to escape the valley before the flood happens. All while Scrat is once again up to his old shenanigans, trying to get his elusive acorn. So let's talk about the main theme of this, which is the plot. The main story seems to focus a lot on Manny and his fear that he might be the last of his own kind, which actually works out well. We know we haven't at this point we haven't seen any mammoths at all, but the way we saw and we all know Manny's in a turmoil after we saw the cave painting sequence with what happened to his family. Sorry about what I was doing. I was just adjusting my window. So we don't know what is. So we understand why he feels this way. And when he finally meets another mammoth, he struggles with Ellie, not just because he has feelings for her, but because he hasn't been around any other mammoths in years. So it's understandable why he feels the way he does. And they have a really good relationship. They grow to understand each other, and Manny, opens up a lot more than he does. Now, if you're thinking if that's what Manny's going through, what does Sid and Diego go through? Well, Sid's main problem in this is that he yearns for more respect from Manny and Diego, which is why he does so many of the things to try and prove that he is equal in their herd, which is understandable. I think we can all agree that Sid's arc in this is better than some of the stuff he goes through in the other films, the other sequels, I should say. Well, Diego, who is perceived as a regular tough guy, he is struggling to cope with his only fear of being water, because he doesn't know how to swim. And considering that the world could end by flooding, it's important that he tries to conquer his fear. So yeah, and to be honest, each of the main trio's arcs fit very well, and they each get their own time. And each of them offer advice to the others. Well, although I think so. The voice acting still remains great. I mean, Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, and Dan Salieri all returned to play Sid, Manny, Diego, and Sid. Well, and they all do a good job. Queen Latifah is pretty good as Ellie, and the other voice actors that they got in this are pretty decent. The Scrat moments are really good. I mean, for many people, they think that Scrat, as the sequels wore on, Scrat was the only enjoyable thing of the films, and I will admit he has some really good moments in this. They definitely feel more like a Chuck Jones Looney Tunes moment than ever. The animation has definitely improved a lot. I mean, when you look back on the first film, it's really dated, but honestly, they did a lot better job with this, and it feels more like a visual cartoon. It definitely seems like a precursor to what Blue Sky Relay do for the animation for Horton Hears a Who, which was their next film. You've got the Climax and the Climax I think is one of the best in animation. I find it really good, and really, really strong, and I find myself quite gasping for air a lot when I first saw it and when I was younger. And the threat of the melting ice and global warming is actually not bad. It's a good follow-up. To be honest, when you look back on the whole films, yeah, they have a theme of the BC period, but the first three films over time. Okay, but the first film they built up global warming as a concept at the end. In this film they exchange a little talk about, and through the first film and this film they do a bit of foreshadowing to maybe the events of the third film with the introduction of dinosaurs. However, past that, you just think the series was just throwing ideas up in the air. Yeah, which leads to, of course, the fiasco of Collision Course. Not counting Continental Drift, I actually think it's passable, but eye candy. But that's really about it. Are there any problems? Well, you get, of course, the romantic buddy comedy cliches you get with the story, and yeah, they're annoying. That's all I can really say. The Vulture song that they sing about food is weak, but I can still watch it, but I don't care. And looking back on how the rest of the sequels went, maybe what they could have done for the ending, you know, I'm not saying I don't hate the ending, but maybe if you could have, looking back on it, maybe they could have changed it. Well, not so much the ending was scrapped, it's more so Manny's ending to his arc. Okay, look, we all know what happens at the end. The sequels pretty much tell us what's going to happen, but there's a decision that Manny has to make, and Sid and Diego are content with what he does, but Manny's able to create a solution that works for both parties. I'm not going to explain. Look, I think what they were leading towards with Sid and Diego was better than when Manny just jumped back in. That's all I'm going to say. As for but yeah, honestly, I do really enjoy this. I still think it's worth your time, and just give it a chance. As I said, this is probably only one of the Ice Age sequels that is actually really good. Give it another chance and see for yourself. And I will admit, when you think about the formula of Blue Sky, at least until the formula was, they were just really getting started, so it didn't really. And you know, Ice Age was a decent enough success that they deserve to give a sequel a shot, and they did it right. Honestly, I do think they needed to make this, considering how Robots ended up. I'm not saying it was a complete failure, but it wasn't really a success. But yeah, this was definitely a really good film, and I think it deserves another shot for the general audience. Though I will admit, if you didn't like the other Ice Age sequels, bound say you didn't like this. But if you want to give them one more shot, just watch the first two films. That's all I got to say. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.5 stars. So yeah. So what's next? Well, I actually have a bit of a special project coming up. It's not a review, but something else. I might start working on it tomorrow, actually, and who knows, maybe I might get it uploaded by the end of the week. But we'll wait and see. Of course, keep on doing my Before the Flicks, do a few other, and I'll still keep on doing reviews. I think I might actually have a few more coming up. And, well, eventually, well, either when I get back in theater, go into a theater again, or when it gets released in Disney Plus, it's Shang-Chi and of course when What If's finished streaming, I'm gonna review that. And well, again, if I also get back in theaters quickly, I can maybe give a go to Free Guy before that's out. Hopefully, all those movies will still be out when theaters open up back in New South Wales. In the meantime, House Mouse is out, and I'll see you for my next video. Ciao.